We're joined now by my free speech hero, Mark Steyn. He's also the author of After America. Hey, Mark, welcome back to the show.
Hey, great to be with you from New York City, Ezra.
Well, I want to talk about so many things. I have been fascinated by the GOP presidential debates. And, you know, every time my heart starts to soar about the new champion, Rick Perry, I realize he's sort of a daydreamy, distracted, forgetful type. And then Herman Cain, yeah, I think, well, maybe we'll have the second black president in a row. But this one's a real capitalist go-getter. And then he fumbles. And now Newt Gingrich, well, you've sort of taken the air out of that balloon for me. Tell me your thoughts on Newt Gingrich and who you think is going to stumble across the finish line in this race.
Well, you know, the Tea Party in the U.S. has wanted an un-Romney to vote for all the way along. As you said, at the time of the Iowa straw poll, Michelle Bachmann was the un-Romney. Then Rick Perry entered the race. Then Herman Cain was the un-Romney of the week for a week or two. And then when there were no other un-Romneys left, we were left with Newt Gingrich, who's a very odd choice. I mean, the Tea Party's big thing throughout 2009, 2010, what animated it was the healthcare bill, Obamacare, the governmentalization of 1/6 of the U.S. economy. And at different points in their careers, both Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich have been in favor of the central feature of the Obamacare plan. So the idea that the Tea Party, which swept the Republican Party to victory in the 2010 elections, has somehow come up with a choice for presidential nominee between Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney is extraordinary.
And talk about being a Washington insider. I mean, Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House, and when he left the Congress, he was sort of a turbo lobbyist, giving $50,000 or $60,000 speeches, working for the Fannie Mae's and Freddie Mac's, the big mortgage regulators. I mean, he is as implicated in big government as anyone else. I mean, he's a great debater, and maybe that's what people are reaching for. Do you think that's what it is? This guy looks like he could go toe-to-toe with Obama and not lose his train of thought like Rick Perry did.
Well, I think there's a market for red meat, and if you're in the market for red meat, Mitt Romney, whatever other qualities he has, doesn't satisfy. I mean, for example, Newt was in some joint in Iowa, I think it was just last night, and some fella asks him, some gay guy asks him, hey, what's your message to gay people? And Newt said, I don't have a message for gay people. If you're looking for a message for gay people, go vote for Obama. And in a certain level, there's something kind of attractive about someone who just doesn't care and kind of flips people off like that. But underneath, Newt is a total squish on all the modish issues. As you say, he took $1.8 million from Freddie Mac. Fannie and Freddie came close to collapsing the global economy in 2008. He's been hot for the climate change. He's been hot for government, as I said, for key aspects of government health care. But then he goes and insults gay people and grade school children and all kinds of other folks. So you wind up with the worst of all worlds. A guy who's a pushover for big government progressivism, but plays a snarling, right-wing, mean-spirited madman on TV. You got the worst of all worlds.
Yeah. You know, I mean, every once in a while he says something that is fascinating, like his legal answer to whether or not we can put people in Guantanamo Bay or how to treat foreign terrorists. Right. I mean, refreshing, clear, concise. Like, the man is a master rhetorician. I mean, he's a hell of a speech maker, which is why he could bill $60,000 a speech. But you're right. I mean, he'll give a speech to an audience and get an applause, but then he might say the opposite to another audience to make a $60,000 check. I think people are so desperate for an articulate communicator. Is that what's driving it? And then, I mean, is Newt done? Has he crested?
No, I think each of the un-Romneys has been a reaction to the previous one, if you like. Michelle Bachmann, who was briefly big after Iowa, and then Rick Perry got in the race, and people said, well, we like everything Michelle Bachmann has to say, if only she weren't an obscure congresswoman from Minnesota. So if we get a governor from Texas who says all the same things as Michelle Bachmann, maybe that's better. And I think, in a sense, the Newt surge was a reaction to Herman Cain. Herman Cain, if you asked him a question about Libya or Syria, he had to to flip through the old mental Rolodex while he had the deer in the headlamps look to remember what continent these countries were on. And frankly, it was an embarrassment. I mean, nobody wants. I don't subscribe to the view that not knowing where foreign countries are makes you more authentically American. I think it's just embarrassing. And so then Newt, the guy being there who's got solutions to things you didn't even know were problems. I mean, this latest thing you mentioned, just touched on just now, his plan for reform of the judiciary, which, if I understand him correctly, means he may be getting U.S. Marshals to arrest certain U.S. judges he's in disagreement with. I mean, that wasn't even an issue, and he just kind of pulled it. He pulled it out of whatever bodily orifice was closest to hand, and suddenly unveiled it, barely without being prompted on it.
I tell you,
fascinating stuff.
It was the favorite thing he said all campaign for me. Listen, I want to ask you about the terrifying next anti-Romney, and that's Ron Paul. Now, let me say this about Ron Paul. I wish he was in charge of the domestic affairs. He would shut down the 3 departments that Rick Perry wanted, another 5. It's his foreign affairs that give me the willies. I mean, he practically sounds pro-Iran, defending their right to nukes. Is he really the next anti-Romney getting the bubble in the polls? Looks that way.
Well, this is basically, I think, a kind of utopian parochialism. You're right that he talks a good game on everything except foreign affairs. He has this romantic view of the United States as a 19th century republic. What people forget is that the only reason the 19th century United States could be an isolationist republic was because of the Pax Britannica, because the Royal Navy kept global peace. Since the Second World War, the United States has kept global peace. The idea that you can sort of retreat into Fortress America. What fortress? I mean, we look at the southern border, and basically 50% of the population of Mexico has moved north of the border. And then if you look at the 49th parallel, 100% of every single Canadian bad idea of the last 40 years has moved south of the border, including multiculturalism, government healthcare. If you were to look at, in terms of policy influence at the North American continent, you'd conclude that Canada was the superpower, because every dumb Canadian idea is gangbusters in Washington, and not a lot of good American ideas have ever taken root in Ottawa.
Well, I think that's actually flipping around, and we're the grown-up ones policy-wise. We're the more conservative ones these days. I only have 30 seconds left. It's a one-sentence question. Will you endorse anyone, and if so, who?
I don't think it's the business of sinister foreigners to tell Americans who to vote for. But Mitt versus Newt is one of those neither of the above questions. There's still plenty of other choices out there, Ezra.
Mark Steyn, columnist to the World, author of After America and America Alone. Thanks so much for joining us today from New York City.